Well, it's week 9 of the LCS with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by Broxah, who unfortunately will not be moving on to the playoffs with CLG. Broxah, I know I did a tough interview with you last year at the end of the World's run, and unfortunately I have to do a tough interview with you now. So I guess I should ask, or start by asking, how are you holding up?
Well, I guess one way to go about answering that question would be to compare how I feel right now to when we did that interview last year. Last year, I remember you asked me on the day that we had played the game, the last game of Worlds, and where we didn't make it out of groups, and I think we agreed on doing the interview it was either the next day or a bunch of hours later.
Yeah, it was, I think, the next day. You guys were leaving that day, I think, or something, yeah.
Yeah. And the reason for that was because I was pretty heartbroken, to say the least. And I don't want to say I'm not really sad and a bit emotional now, because I am, but we've been in a really tough situation more or less the entire year. And there have been times to split where I was really sad, where I felt rather depressed, emotional, all sorts of those negative emotions. And it's not like I don't have parts of those feelings anymore. I guess it's just that at one point I kind of had to accept the fact that we were losing all these games, that we just kept losing over and over. Something I haven't really had much experience with in the past, fortunately enough for me. And going into this weekend, I knew there was a low chance that we would make playoffs. The chance was there, but it required us to go 2-1, realistically probably 3-0. And with the performances we've shown leading into the weekend, it's it could happen, but I knew that the likelihood of it probably wasn't the highest. So I guess I kind of mentally prepared for it. But yeah, obviously it feels horrible finishing 10th place. Horrible, embarrassing, all that good stuff. Especially because up until this point, I feel like I've had a lot of highs in my career. I haven't really had any lows. It's my previous lows were finishing 3rd place last summer split, not making it out of groups at Worlds, stuff like that. And at the time, those were pretty big lows for me, because I came into those splits, those situations, expecting to win and expecting to really make big things happen. And now I'm in 10th place in the LCS, and that's as an LCS player, that's literally the lowest low you can have, right? So it is taking a lot of time for me to kind of accept the situation mentally, accept the situation I've landed in, and not lose any faith or confidence or whatever because of the situation I'm in, but trying to find some positives and trying to make the most of the situation, which is really hard, admittedly. I'll probably need a long break before I'm fully over it, but I guess that's the way that I've tried to approach it at the very least.
Is there any part of you that feels like, in a weird way, that a burden has been lifted from your shoulders? Because at the very least, it's done. Now obviously you head in the off season, you have to figure stuff out. But the struggle with this roster to find the results you were never able to find, that is over. So I don't know if you feel that yet, or if hopefully that's something that will come for you later.
I guess in a way, you could say that I feel that way. Yeah, it's pretty obvious to anyone that things just haven't worked for us at all this year. We've lost what feels like almost every game. I think we've lost 3 times as many games as we've won, or something ridiculous like this. It just hasn't been working at all. And I guess for me personally, it has felt like I've come into the weeks with trying a lot of different things, both in terms of out of game stuff, in game stuff, like how I play. From a viewer perspective, I'm sure there's been some question marks, people wondering why I've been playing Rek'Sai, like full on ganking mode when no one plays Rek'Sai? Why one week does he like gank constantly and go for these crazy plays, sacrificing himself, and then the next week he's just cycling camps and just farming? And ultimately, I've just been trying a lot of different things. We've been trying a lot of different things to try to make it work, and the way that it has felt is just no matter what we tried, we never really improved enough. We never really found a recipe for success, and that's a really depressing feeling, when you at one point feel like you've tried everything that you've done. I don't want to say done everything that you could, but you get the idea, right? We've just tried so many things, none of it worked, and that really sucks. And that's not something I've experienced before. It's something I've had to learn to deal with this year. And fortunately, I've had some people around me who've been able to pick me up along the way and help me deal with those struggles.
So I know it's been an incredibly tough season for you. I think a lot of your fans will maybe want to know where your head is at in regards to your future. So I don't know if it's a situation where you're like, yes, I'm going to do everything I can to keep competing in the LCS, or maybe you're even open to returning to LEC, or if it's a situation where you're like, considering coaching stuff. Obviously, a lot of people have always talked about how great of a coach you would be at whenever you do decide that it's time for you to move on from being a player. So I don't know if like I don't know if anyone would fault you if after this year of exhausting losses, you're like considering if you want to keep doing this. But I also wouldn't be surprised if you still are. So I don't know if you can share anything around that.
Well, to be completely honest with you, I don't really feel like I've gotten to the point yet where I've like actually thought well enough about where I want to see myself next year. Going into this year, I knew it was a different situation for me to be in, because on Fnatic and Team Liquid, the mindset going into every year, every split was always the same, where if you don't win the split, it's a complete failure and the entire year is like a waste and a disappointment. And now going into this rebuild of CLG, I was still hopeful that we could actually make it far, that we could make it to Worlds. That's a big part of why I joined in the first place. I thought that it would be an interesting challenge for me in a new role with a new team, new environment, and where if things clicked, we could actually make it work. And now that decision obviously didn't pay off in terms of results, which is a big shame. And I think the only thing I've decided for now is that I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go to Denmark, and I'm gonna take some time off to just think, reflect, figure out what my next step is gonna be. And I think one thing that definitely sticks out in my mind is that I don't think I'm a bad player by any means. I don't think I'm as bad as some of my haters and like social media want to make it out to be. I don't think I've looked as great this year as I would like to, which is a shame. We've been losing every game. Things have been a little bit tricky, and I've definitely been part of that. There's certain things I could have done to try to bring us back on track, or at least things that could have been tried here and there. But yeah, I think I still got it. I'm pretty confident that I still got it. I think I'm still a good player. I think my communication and shot calling has kept improving consistently throughout all the past years, and I think I have a lot of experience that is still going to be useful. Obviously now, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I want to find out what the next step is going to be for CLG. That is the team I am, I'm playing for still.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out what CLG wants to do next, and that's going to be really interesting for me. And then I'll go from there. I already got a bunch of coaching offers last off season, at that time, it's not anything I wanted to. It was not anything I wanted to consider at all. Probably won't be the case this year either. But I guess I'll see, where my head is at once the time comes. But I mean, I feel like I've been fumbling a bit around, but I think the main thing I wanted to say is that I still think I'm a good player, and whether that means anything, I guess I'll find out when the time comes.
Yeah. Well, I know there are many fans of yours out there that are really hoping to see you continue to play and will support you in whatever decision you end up making during the offseason. I want to thank you so much for talking to me. Is there any parting words that you want to say to anybody as we head into the postseason, I guess?
I would like to give a shout out to. I mean, I guess at first I can give a shout out to all the fans who has been having my back and CLG's back despite the situation. Honestly, when I've been around like streaming on social media, I feel like usually people have been really nice and uplifting to me, which has been, you know, very appreciated, considering where my headspace has been at and that I've been, dealing with a lot of negative emotions. That has helped a lot, and I really appreciate that. I also want to give a shout out to Santorin, because despite the health issues that he has been dealing with, he has also been reaching out to me a lot of times, asking how I'm doing, if there's any way that he can help, giving me some tips and advice, because the situation where I've been in now, where you've been like, playing and like a top team, and then you end up down at the bottom. That's a situation that he has been in, and he gave me a lot of assistance and advice on how I could try to deal with this mentally. And all in all, there's just been so many people who've been nice and supportive, and I very much appreciate that. Of course, the season has not been fun by any means. I think one thing that has been nice, at the very least for me, is that despite the struggles on the team, I mean, it doesn't really go. I mean, I guess it's kind of thanking someone, like my teammates and our staff, the people around CLG. Like, we've actually managed to keep a pretty good atmosphere and to try to be there for each other despite the struggles and despite not being able to make it work. And I think that's something that has been really nice and really important, especially being in the situation we've been in, still, not having a really bad atmosphere and still managing to keep things together a little bit. So, all in all, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really do appreciate all of our conversations. I know you always speak from the heart, so I really appreciate Broxah. I'm looking forward to seeing what is next for you, and hopefully you can get some well-deserved rest, go back and see some family and some friends, because I think you very much deserve that. I think a lot of people probably need that right now. So thank you again for the interview, and for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Playoffs are coming. Oh my gosh. Playoffs are coming. I am so excited for this, and I hope you are too, because it's when we get to see the just maximum levels of competition in the LCS and these best of fives. And you know what else allows for maximum competition? You play on an Alienware setup, get an Alienware notebook, desktop, monitor, maybe some of their accessories. Alienware.com/Travis. There's a link in the description below, and there's a code that you can use. And they've lifted some of the restrictions that unfortunately were on that code for a little bit, so you should be able to apply it to even more systems and setups now. So go do that. Check out the code. And then while we're talking about competition, compete against the other people that watch this video by subscribing to the channel. Those names are scrolling across the bottom of the screen if everything went well. Bye.